Welcome to the Really Likable Geeks podcast. I'm Steve.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Stuart.
And this is the podcast where we talk about nerd stuff and things that keep you from going outside, like video games, comic books, anime, and other nerd things alike. This episode of the Really Likable Geeks podcast is brought to you by Audible. Thank you, Audible, for sponsoring the Really Likable Geeks podcast. Book of the week there, Stuart.
The book of the week is The Lord of the Rings.
The Lord of the Rings. And why is that?
Because Matt will tell you.
Okay.
That's why. It's themed, this episode.
It is themed.
J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings is a genuine masterpiece, the most widely read and influential fantasy epic of all time. It is also quite simply one of the most memorable and beloved tales ever told. Originally published in 1954, The Lord of the Rings set the framework upon which all epic quest fantasy since has been built. Through the urgings of the enigmatic wizard Gandalf, young hobbit Frodo Baggins embarks on an urgent, incredibly treacherous journey to destroy the One Ring. I know, I read that super weird.
It's okay.
This ring, created and then lost by the Dark Lord Sauron centuries earlier, is a weapon of evil, one that Sauron desperately wants returned to him. With the power of the ring once again his own, the Dark Lord will unleash his wrath upon all of Middle-earth. The only way to prevent this horrible fate from becoming reality is to destroy the ring to Mordor, the only place it can be destroyed. Unfortunately for our heroes, Mordor is also Sauron's lair. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is essential reading, not only for fans of fantasy, but for lovers of classic literature as well.
Incredible.
If you wanted to destroy the world, Dipwad shouldn't have lost the ring in the first place.
That's true. He got it cut off by Isildur.
Yep.
Incredible.
On his back.
Incredible story. Amazing book. Great author. Everything about it is fantastic.
Yeah, we would have no fantasy writing of any kind without
It
Lord of the
is.
Rings.
If you don't know what Lord of the Rings is, if you've never watched it, if you've never read it, you need to.
Kill
I
yourself.
was saying,
Read it and then kill yourself.
if you don't know what Lord of the Rings is, I don't know how you even managed to find your way to this
The
podcast.
band
I have no
Styx
idea.
has a song called Lord of the Rings.
Led Zeppelin has several songs
about Lord of the Rings.
Ramble On.
There's tons of them. If you don't know what Lord of the Rings is, you're living under a rock and you're missing out. I know people who haven't seen the movie but have read the books, and I know vice versa. But it's incredible. Lord of the Rings has everything. Mm-hmm. It has everything. It's got dragons. It's got little people, big people. It's got wizards. It's got sorcery. It's got war, death. It's got orcs and trees that talk. It's crazy.
Yeah,
It's amazing.
it's awesome.
I love.
Is little
Lord of the
people
Rings.
the politically correct term for
Hobbit.
them at this point?
Hobbit.
Oh, okay.
Called
Okay.
hobbits.
I didn't know. I didn't know what was the politically correct term for them at this point.
Anyways,
I don't
what
care.
is our... Jeez.
Just saying. I don't care.
What is our episode about this week, Matt?
Well, since you guys are talking about the book of the week being the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and you were mentioning a theme, and it just so happens that in a few days on September 22nd, it is Hobbit Day.
Yeah, it is.
I figured we should talk about,
Lord of
wait
the
for it,
Rings.
billionaire orphans and their glowy pointy sticks. No, but seriously, we are going to talk about the Lord of the Rings in all of its forms.
All hail to the Lords of the Rings. To the magic and mystery it brings.
Sing my song
To the...
in the deepest
You guys could give Tenacious D a run for their money.
No, we couldn't.
No.
I don't know.
There's only one D.
Yeah. Of tenacity.
Can we hear that?
Lord of the Rings. Why don't you give a little backstory on Lord of the Rings, guys? A little bit of origin
Okay.
of the world of Lord of the Rings.
Do you want me to do this?
Oh, I don't mind. This
can
is
do
this is your
After
realm.
you, sir.
J.R.R. Tolkien
See what I did there?
fought in the Somme in World War One, and during that time, he was known as an expert linguist. And the original conception for Lord of the Rings came from his love of different languages.
An expert in gibberish.
Yeah, so he was a linguistic expert. So he created all these different languages, and then in order to use these languages in his books, he created the Lord of the Rings series.
An entire universe.
Yeah, an entire universe based around just these languages that he had created
which are incredible.
for fun.
Which is difficult in and of itself.
Yeah, which are
He created his own form of Elvish.
two different.
Oh, yeah,
forms. There's
that's
two
right.
different forms of Elvish.
Dude's crazy.
And you can buy several different. There's numerous books that
On how
will
to
teach
speak
you
it.
how to speak both forms of Elvish.
Is there a
and how
Rosetta
to
Stone
write
for
it.
that?
Yes, there actually
That's
There actually
awesome.
is.
There
That
actually
is
is.
so cool.
as
Yeah.
well as Dwarvish and the.
Yeah, but they're all dead. I don't want to speak that.
The orc speak.
Yeah, the orc speak.
Yeah.
Which is just a lot
Uruk-hai.
of
Yeah. Orc
the
speak.
Uruk-hai.
Yeah.
Orc can't, I guess would be the,
Sure. We'll go with that.
So J.R.R. Tolkien and a lot of the imagery that we see for where Elrond is what is it,
Rivendell.
is based on his travelings through Sweden. You can actually see the actual place where he stood, and he sketched out what he thought Rivendell would look like.
Yeah.
It's in Sweden, and it's a very beautiful place. So he based a lot of the imagery and the languages on real languages and places, and that's why it's such like it just resonates with people all over the globe. So that was kind of the origin of Lord of the Rings, and then from there it just
Exploded.
exploded.
It's one of the
Explosivo.
Like
It
an
is one of
MG42. I'm
the-
just kidding. That's World War II.
I would say it's easily one of the most beloved stories of all time.
It is.
It really
we,
is.
We would have no other fantasy without Lord of the Rings. There's no Game of Thrones. There's no Wheel of Time.
There isn't.
There's no Thomas Covenant, the Unbeliever.
I would say
There's
to an
no World
extent,
of
there's no World of
Warcraft.
Warcraft.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was about to say that, but our producer
No,
beat me
that's
to it.
absolutely
Wow.
true.
High
Without-
five.
For people who want to
High
know
five to the
why
producer.
we say stuff like that, it's because Lord of the Rings was written in 1937
It was first published in
in
54.
54, but it was written
It was written in 37?
1937.
That's about the same time as the first comic books were being
Yeah.
written.
Yeah. It was published on July 29th, 1954. And then November 11th, 1954, October 20th, 1955. And that was preceded by The Hobbit. And then that was after the adventures of
Huckleberry Finn.
Tom Bombadil.
Tom Bombadil, yeah.
Which was Tom Bombadil was a minor character in the novels. We'll get into why he wasn't in the
Lots of
movies.
sailing in that book.
Yeah, we'll get to why
Come
he
sail
wasn't.
away.
He no.
Sail away with me. now.
We'll get
I love
why
Styx.
why he wasn't
Um,
in the movies.
yeah, and it's just I don't know. Anytime I base anything fantasy wise, it always just goes back to Lord of the Rings.
It's
every
the
time.
touchstone. Like you can't help but base sci-fi movies, compare them to Star Wars.
Oh yeah. And there's
And
been
novels you can't help but compare to Dune.
there have
Yeah,
been so
exactly.
many books and movies and TV shows and games that have tried to utilize the universe of Lord of the Rings to their advantage to make a new universe, and it's failed. But then there's been some also who have used it to their advantage, and it's been great. Game of Thrones, for example.
Oh yeah.
And you got then in the video game world, you have stuff like The Witcher, that has a lot of stuff. Skyrim, Elder Scrolls.
Oh, Elder
titles.
Scrolls has done a pretty good
Incredible.
job of creating a fantasy universe.
Oh,
I gotta
yeah.
give them credit.
And they're it's very very reminiscent of
It's
of Lord of the
It's
Rings.
the
Oh,
it's
incredible.
the
Elves, orcs, humans,
Dwarves,
conflict. What a coincidence!
It's-
Who saw this coming?
it's the Isaac Newton quote. If I have seen farther than other men, it's because I have stood on the shoulders of giants.
Yep.
So you gotta
All right. So, complete aside,
sure.
Stephen Hawking is a brilliant guy.
Mm-hmm.
How'd he stand on those shoulders?
Oh my god!
Jeez.
Wow.
I
was
mean, he
fast.
wasn't always in a wheelchair.
I'm just saying, that just means that he's seeing that far and he's not on shoulders. So that guy's awesome.
Why are we still on this? Why? Jeez.
Wow.
Too far?
Oh my gosh. It's a little far.
All right.
And
dial
throughout
it
the
back.
years, there have been so many editions of the books. So many editions of the Lord of the Rings books. And so many editions of the movies as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, just, you could pick one up. It doesn't matter which edition you get. It's all pretty much the same. It's all written the same. It just depends on which cover you get or what trilogy or whatever, box set it comes in or whatever. But there's so many different versions, like book versions of the book has been rewritten so many times and republished so many times. Yeah, republished, not rewritten, I should say. And it's a masterpiece. You can't really rewrite that story. Or try to add on to that story anymore, which is where The Hobbit came in, which was a precursor as a prequel to it. So it was amazing. Lord of the Rings is incredible. There's been many of movie franchise, book, whatever that I say is great. Star Wars is great. Star Trek is great. Game of Thrones is fantastic. But it's like, at the top is always Lord of the Rings.
We would not have a Game of Thrones series on HBO if we didn't have the success that Lord of the Rings.
If he had been killed
did.
in World War I and did not finish what he had started.
No, I'm saying if the Lord of the Rings movies hadn't been such a huge success,
Yeah.
then the Game of Thrones TV series wouldn't have been greenlit.
True.
And the way that they did it was so mind-blowing to think of, like nowadays or even back then. They filmed all three movies before the first one was even released.
Yeah.
They had no idea
That's
how well it was going to do.
insane.
Yep.
That's an incredible amount of money they spent. And they made back exponential over.
Oh, yeah.
But can you imagine like a studio greenlighting a trilogy movie before the first one is even released?
Yeah.
To film all three of them back to back? Oh, it's insane.
Let's just pay all the actors, all the crew, everybody.
And how long did
Let's
they
do
work
all
on
three.
those movies for? I can't even remember.
2.5, 3 years.
I think it was 3 years.
I remember being younger when the movies first came out. I remember being like, man, those movies felt like 10 years they were making those movies because they were just going.
Oh, it's incredible.
It's just
the amount of work they put into it.
I will say there's only one negative thing about the Lord of the Rings movies. I went and saw them in the theaters. That movie theater bladder that they joke about, that was real.
Yeah.
Because I'm sitting there going,
You don't want to leave.
By the last installment, how many endings are there? I need to pee so bad.
And that's the theatrical release. The extended editions are even longer.
gosh.
But at least you own those and you can pause them and go to the bathroom.
It.
Yeah.
But
I saw
so good.
I don't remember where I was at where it was at, but I've seen all of the Lord of the Rings extended editions in theaters.
Oof.
It was before The Hobbit came out. Yeah, I saw.
Oh, they did one of those 18-hour.
Yeah, things.
Go for it.
Yeah, and I watched all of them in theaters, and oh my gosh. I mean, I saw the movies in theaters when they were being released.
Yeah.
But then being able to go back and watch them again in cinema. Now with all the technology that's out there and seeing it in a different, resolution or whatever like that,
It was filmed in 420.
incredible.
Let's up it to 4K.
Yeah, it's incredible. It was incredible to watch it again in theaters, and I was very privileged to do that. Because I don't know if that's ever going to happen again. I don't think there's ever going to be another Lord of the Rings movie.
You can't. I mean, the only other novel series that they have not successfully made into a movie
It's Tom Bombadil.
that would compare. No, I'm saying like.
He's going completely off of Lord of the Rings.
I'm saying like, Lord of the Rings is such a huge
success
novel.
Yeah.
The only other novel series that they have not successfully made into a movie is Dune.
Oh, yeah.
Dune has
Not
never
for
been
a lack
done.
of trying.
Dune has never been done correctly.
It's bad. The book is great.
As much as I love Kyle MacLachlan and Patrick Stewart and David Lynch, that movie was awful. The movie was terrible, terrible, terrible. And that's why David Lynch took his name off of it. And that's why if you look it up on IMDb, it says Alan Smithy.
Yeah, his name's not on it.
Which is
He's not
if
credited
you don't
for
know,
it.
Alan Smithy is the pseudonym
Yep.
that directors in Hollywood use when they don't want their name attached to a film.
Right, and then you got to find out and look it up and all
Yeah.
that stuff. Yeah, but it's not directly tied to it.
Yeah, so it's just awful. I mean, there's what other like impactful novel have they not made into a movie that you can think of that is the same even stratosphere as Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Just Dune. That's about it.
Yeah.
They've never tried to do Neuromancer.
No.
It's too
But
big.
that's,
They tried
yeah.
Hitchhikers and blew
They tried
it.
Hitchhikers and
they
failed.
blew it.
As much as I like, Martin Freeman and Sam Rockwell,
Don't forget Severus Snape.
and Alan Rickman.
Yep.
So, well, that's the same. The fact that if you haven't read the books, the movie is good is the same argument that people use for Watchmen, which is garbage.
To be fair, if you knew nothing about Avatar: The Last Airbender, you might be entertained by M. Night Shyamalan's version, and that's not an argument.
Yeah, that's like saying oh, James Cameron's Avatar is a great and original movie.
It's Pocahontas
Wait.
in space.
No, it's Dances with Wolves.
Oh, yeah,
It's
we
a
did
little
this
both.
once.
Yeah, we did this
Yeah.
once.
Dances with Wolves, not Pocahontas.
Yeah. So, anyways,
What are you doing?
its impact on the Lord of the Rings' impact on the fantasy universes has been exponential. I know we were talking about
yeah.
that.
Lord of the
It's
Rings
been
is
huge.
the impact on the
It
fantasy
is.
world.
That's it.
It's-
Without Lord of the Rings, we
Yeah.
don't have
Gollum right there.
fantasy.
Yeah, we got Gollum right there. It's like we have books back here. It's amazing. It's a achievement. It's achieved.
It's so
It's
inundated
huge.
in our culture. Like the biggest rock band of all time, arguably, Led Zeppelin has several songs about Lord of the Rings.
And people don't even realize it. Really. But
If
there some are.
you don't know that Ramble On is about Lord of the Rings, then you're
You're-
not
you're out-
listening.
you're out.
Like, come on.
But it's like Lord of the Rings. It's funny because its impact on the fantasy world is pretty. It's pretty prevalent, and it's consistent. That's the thing about Lord of the Rings. Like its quality, the quality of the storytelling and in the books, and then in the movies, the visual aspects, the acting, everything. It's the quality of it is so consistent.
I'm gonna throw this back
It's
to
because they filmed all three at once.
Yeah,
they didn't have a break in between.
You can't watch it and be like, ugh, like.
One of the things it
worried
really
about
has
time,
going
but
for
like
it-
it's incredible.
I'm going to throw this back to an episode we did a while back. I don't remember which episode it was, but you guys had gotten into an argument, and Steve had posed the
God.
question.
Blue Wizards.
Well, you then fine. Name a movie that doesn't have any plot holes. And so you said The Lord of the Rings. And you began arguing about the Silmarillion, which we'll get into later. But that wasn't the movie. The movie was The Lord of the Rings. And yeah, the way he wrote it, everything he did about it, it was so flawless. There is no plot hole in that movie.
It really isn't.
It is the quintessential fantasy.
Yeah, if you wanna break down plot structure and be really nitpicky about every scene having to drive forward the story in some way, there's no. I'm talking about theatrical release.
Right.
Every scene has to drive forward the story, and if you want to be really like film exposition and dissecting everything, every scene of every movie drives forward the story.
Yeah.
There's no fat to trim. Like he did a fantastic job.
I'll say I did see one thing. I don't normally browse Tumblr, but occasionally Tumblr posts find their way across memes and such.
Sure.
Somebody put up that at one point the orcs had captured the hobbits, and they
Merry and Pippin.
and they used the line, "It looks like meat's back on the menu, boys," which then implies that orcs know what a menu is, and thus that there are such things as restaurants. And I don't know if I'd like to know what a restaurant in Mordor is like.
that cater to orcs.
Well, the next
Well, who
person, the
serves-
next person underneath that immediately came and just blew my mind because I was too busy thinking about a restaurant in Mordor. That's probably not a good thing. And they said, well, you'd probably need a reservation because you can't simply walk in. I lost it.
Who would serve? Who would be the waiters?
The weakest orc.
Yeah, so
You get forced to
They
be
probably get eaten.
no, because the weakest orc is on the menu.
the next weakest
The
orc.
next weakest horse is serving the weakest.
He doesn't get
orc.
to eat. He has to serve it.
Yeah.
Oh my
okay. That's so
That's
ridiculous.
so stupid.
Yeah, I guess that is an idiom that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Well, because okay,
it does, though.
Yeah, that idiom doesn't make sense. Well, I mean, maybe because they've killed enough and eaten enough humans that they like are aware. No, because they're Urukai. They just were literally born like a week ago.
I
Say they haven't eaten people since then, though.
But like
To know what a
week
restaurant
ago,
is.
to know what a restaurant is and what a menu is. Yeah, I guess that is.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
All right. Oh.
Well, there it was. that was
tiny
the whole.
pinhole.
Was that Urukai making an idiomatic joke
About restaurants.
about restaurants? Yeah, because how would they know what a menu is? They wouldn't.
They'd have to know what a restaurant is.
Yeah.
And you'd need reservations.
Yep.
Come on, Peter Jackson.
Ugh.
God.
Can't believe you let that one slip by.
That was that one.
That ruined the entire
One.
movie. That's it. I'm done. That's
At a
it. I'm out,
90
guys.
hour-
Now I hate those movies.
90 hours ruined. 7 seconds. 7 seconds ruined 90 hours. But it's like, oh my gosh, like Lord of the Rings is just.
Can I talk about one thing that I didn't like about the movies?
Sure.
Okay.
I got a few things.
Because
One
you're
of-
a huge fan of them. I'm intrigued.
Yeah, and I love the novels. I read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings when I was like 10, and I didn't understand any
Good
of it.
quality, but bored me to tears.
And I didn't understand any of it. And then I read it
You
again
just
when
knew
I
there were
was
some dudes with a thing
yeah,
that
and
were going
then
to play.
it's very highbrow.
Symbolic.
You got to pay attention.
Yeah, and then I read it again when I was 13. I was like, oh, this is good.
This is not
But-
how I remember.
One of my favorite characters in the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit and Silmarillion and everything is Tom Bombadil.
Okay.
Okay.
And he is just not in the movies.
DGAF.
They didn't cast him. They didn't shoot any. It's not even like an extended thing. They just didn't even try to put him in.
No. I don't even think he's mentioned.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
He's not mentioned at all.
Yeah.
And that kind of pissed me off. Because that
Why don't you explain why Tom Bombadil is kind of important, though?
Tom Bombadil is basically the. And here's the thing: is that no one really knows what purpose he served in the story,
Right.
Because there's arguments made that Tom Bombadil is basically like the creator, and he's just kind of like aloof and not caring about
Yeah.
anything. Because Tom Bombadil is the one character that the One Ring
entire universe.
in the entire universe that the One Ring did not have any effect on. Like in the novel, it shows him going like, "Oh, the ring," and he just like tosses it up and it disappears. Like, where did it go? Just like messing around like it's a joke, and then like pulling it from behind Frodo's ear. Like the ring has no effect on him.
Yeah.
So
And I don't know
how
if it's because he's just so like.
There's no
But it's,
call to
you
put
know,
it on.
uber powerful.
Yeah, but it's got no effect on him.
Does
at all.
not care about it. Does not
Yep.
matter to him. It's
I'm
like
trying to
literally the ring to rule all of Middle Earth, and he's just like meh.
Yeah, let's see.
Because in the novels, when they're at the council
Here we go.
at Rivendell, they mention like, oh well, we could give it to Tom Bombadil, and Gandalf's like, he'd probably lose it
Right.
and
Because
forget
he
about
doesn't
it. 'Cause He
care.
doesn't care.
So for those of you who don't know about Tom Bombadil, so in Lord of the Rings, Tom Bombadil is a mysterious character who aids Frodo and his companions on their journey. He and his wife Goldberry, the daughter of the river, still live in their house, and some of the characters and situations from the original poem appear in Lord of the Rings. In the book, he's described as a master of wood, water, and hill, and nearly always speaks or sings in stress timed. Like like his
stress time.
and he does a lot of like
Singing and
hymns
dancing.
and whatnot. He appears in 3 chapters: the Old
Pointed at
Forest.
my-
So the 3 chapters of Lord of the Rings: the Old Forest, in the House of Tom Bombadil, which is a good chapter. Fog on the Borrow Downs. He's mentioned in the chapter the Council of Elrond, and that's what you were saying, as possible keeper and protector of the One Ring,
God, you're so
as well as at the end of the story, homeward bound in the Grey Havens. Behind Bombadil's simple facade are hints of great knowledge and power, though limited to his own domain. However, there is a certain amount of evidence that he may be
Yeah,
the oldest being.
let's stop that. Hold on, wait, before you go on.
Okay.
To his domain. His domain is hills, woods,
Yeah.
and streams.
Yeah.
So everywhere.
Maybe even this guy.
That isn't the ocean.
So Middle Earth then.
Yeah.
Because all of Middle Earth is either hills, woods,
or streams.
Yeah.
Like even Mordor has those crappy streams going through the gates. Like
It all makes
so
sense.
everything.
So literally the
His
only
domain
thing
is everything.
except the
Yep.
mountains.
Well,
those are just big
those
hills.
are big hills.
But like underneath the door?
Yes. 'Cause
Yeah.
there's streams through
There's streams
Moria.
through Moria.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair.
So like so everything. His domain is all.
Yep.
He just only stays here because he likes it here, and that's where his wife hangs out.
Yeah.
Like he says that. Like he's only here because his wife likes this particular spot.
So
Fair.
I'm going to continue. There's a certain amount of evidence
Where I
that
live,
he
'cause my
may
wife likes
be
it.
the oldest being in Middle Earth, he tells Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin that he was there when the elves first came west.
As in, okay, so the elves coming west is the elves being created.
Yes. That's what that means.
That's
He's old AF
the creation, the Meyer creation.
of elves. It's crazy.
So he was around then. But in the Silmarillion, he's never mentioned as being created by the Lord of the Rings god.
Yeah. See, Elrond even said that he was like of like the eldest or something like that. There's got to be something in here about that. Elrond states that Bombadil was considered old during the Elder Days.
During the First Age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When there were giant spiders and balrogs
Everywhere.
just everywhere.
Yeah. So
And Bombadil was just like, doo-doo-doo, don't care about any of this.
anything. Yep.
so here's something
Unless it's
for
in my little.
But no one would go there.
no one would go
course
there.
not.
Yeah.
Balrogs were like, no, not going there.
Yeah. So for those of you who watched the movie, don't know
go
about
down
Tom
that road.
Bombadil and everything, at the end of the Return of the King, when Gandalf leaves the Hobbits, he mentions that he wants to have a long talk with Bombadil. You know this in the
Yeah.
book. He mentions that he's calling him a moss gatherer. And Gandalf says in response to Frodo of how well Bombadil is getting along, as well as ever. That's what he says. He goes, as well as ever. And quite untroubled. Of course, because like
Because
Tom
what's
Bombadil.
going to mess with it?
Yeah, exactly. Not much interested in anything that we have done and seen. They save their visits to the Ents. At the very end of The Lord of the Rings, Frodo sails into the west and leaves Middle Earth. Everyone knows that.
Yeah.
He has what seems
That's a euphemism
he
for
has what
dead.
seems to him the very experience that appeared to him in the house of Bombadil in his dream on the second night. It's like
So
Tom Bombadil should have been in the movies because that would have been gnarly.
yeah,
That
'cause
would have
I
made
don't-
people's minds just go, yeah. That dude was
because
crazy.
In the sixth chapter of the book, it tells you how the third book is going to end.
yeah,
Because Tom Bombadil is God.
essentially, yeah.
Basically.
He's just so
He's weird.
broken.
He's weird.
No one messes with him. Ever.
Oh, he's in Tales from the Perilous Realm.
Yeah.
That's
he
right.
knows everything.
He does.
He can do anything. And
Here's-
he just
doesn't
care.
care. He does not care.
he's happy with his own little thing.
So it
and
kind of
it's
makes you wonder: does the effects of the ring only affect those people who care?
I mean, you can't say Tom Bombadil doesn't care because he literally said that he stays there because his wife likes it.
Yeah, it's not that
Yeah, and if he cared about the land, then that would mean
he cares greatly
yeah,
about.
Then
the
he
land.
would care
mentions-
what happens to it, and
Yeah,
then the
he
ring affects
mentions-
it. So yeah, you're
He
right.
mentions, I think, that the scourge from Mordor won't affect his part, like what he's kind of deemed as his.
Yeah,
Somehow, that's what I was always fascinated. Like, what would have happened if Sauron with the ring had kind of showed up on Tom Bombadil's doorstep and been like, "What up?"
Yeah. I'm reading here.
Like, would Bombadil have just been like, "Nah," and nerfed him into like nothingness?
Oh, that's right.
I almost feel like if Tom
forgot about
Bombadil had
this.
that situation happen to him, he'd probably kind of just be like, you know what? Reset. Back to age 1.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because you were just talking about how it has no power over him and all that stuff like that. Tom first appears when Merry and Pippin are trapped by an old man Willow, and Frodo and Sam cry for help. Tom commands the old man Willow to release them, singing him to sleep, and shelters the hobbits in his house for 2 nights. Here it's seen that the One Ring has no power over Bombadil. He can see Frodo when the ring makes him invisible.
Yeah,
I
that was the
forgot
other
about
thing.
that. And can wear it himself with no effect. He even tosses the ring in the air and makes it disappear, but then produces it from his other hand and returns it to Frodo. While this seems to demonstrate that he has a unique and mysterious power over the ring, the idea of giving him the ring for safekeeping is rejected in the second chapter, The Council of Elrond. Gandalf says the ring has no power over him and believes that Tom would not find the ring to be very important, and so might simply misplace it. So yeah, you're right about all that. But it's weird why it doesn't not have an effect. Why?
I think it's okay. So if we go back to
symbolism.
like,
Plot
there.
twist, he's Sauron. I know.
oh, that'd be crazy.
That'd be weird.
That'd be super
right?
weird. I think so like if we go
You think
back
he'd be missing a finger, though?
if we go back to the creation of the rings of power originally, right? 9 rings were created for man, 3 for elves, 7
for the
for the dwarves,
dwarves,
right? And 1 ring of power
To rule them all.
to rule them all.
Ooh.
If what he's saying, I guess he's not within the bounds of creation, I guess, because all of the elves, man, and dwarves were all a creation of the All-Father of Middle-earth, like the god of Middle-earth,
right.
Because dwarves were hewn from the stone, blah, 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 elves, blah, 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 blah. So I guess if the One Ring was created by Sauron, who was, for all intents and purposes, an angel,
Anti-God.
he was an angel.
Yes.
It's a mire. And he created a ring in order to rule over the creations of the god.
Right.
Then that would mean that Tom Bombadil wasn't.
I guess.
A creation of the god.
Yeah. So does that
So
mean
what is he a creation of?
is the
The
god,
god?
or just some separate entity? So yeah, he's basically an ancient alien. Tom Bombadil's an ancient
Oh
alien.
my god, aliens.
Aliens.
Wait, like from another planet that
yeah, his
might have
planet
gotten blown up.
probably exploded.
Oh,
And
and then
then-
some guy came at him with a glowing spear, yelling
glowing
"Martha!" Yeah,
Yeah, that was always like such a cool mystery to me, and I really wish that Tolkien, because Tolkien has on several times, people always ask him like, "What is up with Bombadil?"
well,
and he never really gave a good explanation
Yeah.
on.
I'm trying to find anything on this, and the only thing that I've found so far on this is that, well, let me read this really quickly. And I know we're doing a lot of reading, but that's what Lord of the Rings is. It's all
well,
book.
I'm just gonna
So-
throw out if Tolkien himself didn't say it, everything we have is speculation, and even if it's really, really like we're pretty sure that's it, we're never gonna be 100%.
So what is explained is that the ring can't affect Tom Bombadil because he is outside the whole issue of power and domination. Tolkien uses Tom as an allegory that even his intense struggle between good and evil is only part of the whole picture of existence. So, but the other thing too is we're just imagining and assuming that because the ring doesn't have any power over him, is like he doesn't turn invisible when he puts the ring on, blah 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 blah. Was he still tempted by the ring? Was he still tempted for it? Did he still have the test?
Okay, so here's a
That's the
quote.
thing.
Here's what's gonna make it even weirder. Here's a quote from Tom himself from Lord of the Rings. Eldest, that's what I am. Tom remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. He knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless, before the Dark Lord came from outside. So literally, Tom is talking about before creation. He was just
There.
around. But he doesn't say that he was the creator.
What on earth? Like,
The origins and nature of Tom Bombadil are unknown. However, he already existed when the Dark Lord came to Arda, signifying he may have been alive even before the coming of the Valar.
Tom Bombadil's crazy. This is like such a crazy character.
So
And this is probably crazy insights for people who don't know about Tom
Here's
Bombadil,
my-
who watched the movies and not read the books.
Here's
There's
my-
a dude out there who is so OP that the ring had no power over him.
an interesting
He is
thought.
already... Oh, and here's even more messed up. He's already also lived in the West before the elves went there and then came back. Because...
Wait, what? Oh, yeah.
Because he can. Even though, like, going into the West was like, now you're there. Like, you know, that was the spiritual passing on of Middle Earth. But he's like, oh yeah, I was in the West. It was boring, so I came back.
So would that mean that he's the father of time, essentially? What's that called? An Aner or whatever like that? An Aner?
Valar, yeah.
What
Because
if
because
we're
even
just
Gandalf,
overthinking this, and he's literally just
even
you know,
Gandalf
Lord of the Rings
says
God.
that Gandalf says that he's the eldest. Gandalf
Yeah.
says he's the eldest. So would that mean that he's like the governor of time, essentially? Like, it's crazy. Tom Bombadil is crazy.
There are many theories of his origin, such as him being in truth a Maya, a man, Iluvatar himself, or the god, or even the reader. Oh, so us. Though more on this can be found elsewhere. He appeared as an old man, at least to Hobbit eyes, with a wrinkled and ruddy blah, 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 blah. Said to be taller than a typical Hobbit, but too short to be a man, which is nothing.
Let's see.
Okay, so Tolkien tells us that Tom's name is Bucklandish in form and suggests that it was given to him by the hobbits of that region, as he has many other names, which makes sense because the elves,
you know what
the
else
elves
was
called him something completely different, and Gandalf called him something else too.
You know what was also crazy about him? No Hobbit had ever heard of him.
Yeah, but
Remember
he
that?
had a Hobbit name.
He had a Hobbit name,
Yeah.
but no Hobbit had ever heard of him.
Yeah, to the
Like,
elves.
what? Like, it's crazy. Tom Bombadil's crazy.
Okay, so what if?
So, okay,
what
here's-
if
here's
this
what he's
wasn't his
known.
first
Here's-
time around?
Here's what he's known. To the elves
That's
and
what I'm
the,
saying, Governor
and the
of Time.
Dunedain, he was known as Earwin ben Adar, which translates to oldest and fatherless. And Earwin literally means old young in Sylvan.
this podcast has gone
So-
from just Lord of the Rings to who is Tom Bombadil?
To the men of the Vales and Anduin and Rohan, he was known as Orald, which means very ancient. To
I
the
was gonna-
dwarves knew him as Forn, which means belonging to ancient days. And
So what you're telling me is that literally everyone in the world just called this guy Old Fart.
Bond.
That was his name. His name was Old Fart.
It's
Okay.
so crazy.
Here's some weird stuff. Tom Bombadil's country. The hobbits can sense the hatred within all the trees in the old forest. Every tree in that place is a malevolent hating of humankind. Every single tree and the barrows of the ancient kings what lie nearby are defiled and inhabited by the Barrowites. Bombadil has the power to control or banish these creatures, but he does not do so. Instead, he provides a refuge for them against men and other powers. Evil things and only evil things flourish in his domain. Tom Bombadil is the master, Goldenberry says, and his subjects are black horrors and Barrowites. It's like, okay, Why is he in Hobbiton?
So, another common speculation is that Tom Bombadil could be a spiritual being closely connected to the Arrow Iluvatar, or Arrow himself in corporeal form. So God on Earth.
There's
He's
just-
God and Jesus.
The only thing with Tom Bombadil is just speculation. That's it, because we don't know.
So here's in one letter,
Or he lies.
in the letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. Tolkien describes Goldberry as the seasonal changes in nature, and Tom Bombadil as the spirit of the vanishing Oxford and Berkshire countryside, meaning that Tom is the countryside existing in time, alive and embodied. However, this letter was in reference to works which predated the writings of Lord of the Rings, and thus may not be of Tom as he appears in Lord of the Rings. So he might just be okay. So what that letter is saying is that Tom is literally the embodiment of Middle Earth, like the physical, corporeal Middle Earth.
He's Mother Nature.
Exactly.
Except Father.
And his wife is Mother Nature.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's
We'll
my question.
speculate further.
How long have we been talking about Tom Bombadil?
About a half hour.
Why isn't this fool in the movies?
I don't.
Because I think because then
it's
that
so
would have been the plot
enigmatic.
hole. That would have been the plot hole, because people would have been like, "Who's Tom Bombadil?" Blah blah blah. Like, you know, I think it's probably a good idea to leave him out. Now that we're doing this, it's probably a good idea that they left him out.
Yeah, the common man.
You know, but
No. Who is he? I need to know.
Would you not? But the thing is, would you rather like?
Merry old soul was he.
Would you hear it from
Oh.
like someone else and not Tolkien?
I just want someone to tell me.
I'm
I
going
want
to.
something to make sense.
I'm going to read something here in just a minute, but our ad read minute. But there's something
for
else
it.
here that I just came across that is kind of interesting. The spell that binds Bombadil to his narrow and cursed country was put in place century ago by the Valar, protect men and elves. We already knew about that. It may last a few decades more, perhaps a few generations of Hobbit lives, but when the last elf has gone from the havens and the last spells of rings and wizards unravel, then it will be gone. And Ben, the oldest and fatherless, who was a ruler of the darkness in the Middle Earth before Sauron was, before Morgoth set foot there, before the first rising of the
Giant
sun.
spider.
Yeah, will come into his inheritance again. And one dark night of the old trees will march westward into the Shire to feed their ancient hatred. And Bombadil will dance down among them, clad in his true shape at last, singing in his incomprehensible rhymes as the trees mutter their curses, and the black and the terrible Barrow-wights dance and gibber around him. And he will be smiling. So
they're saying that
He's deaf?
Bombadil is Morgoth?
I guess.
Oh, that's gnarly.
That's gnarly.
That's insane.
Why the ring doesn't affect him.
Yeah.
Because
it's evil.
Because he's evil incarnate.
But you know what? That could just be speculation.
That's insane.
That's crazy. Tom Bombadil
That's crazy.
is awesome.
I
like
love
it.
Tom
Our
Bombadil.
producer. I like it. Let's do that.
So he could be God, he could be Satan,
He
or he
could
could
be
be Mother
God,
Earth. We
he
have
could
no
be-
idea.
Or it could be all.
Or he could be all.
We all encompass.
True.
Oh, Tom Bombadil. Like, Lord of the Rings is amazing.
Tom Bombadil.
Tom Bombadil. Sir Bombadil.
Then who is Goldberry?
I don't know.
No, she's real.
She's real. Yeah.
Wasn't she in the 007 movie?
He make something.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yes,
dang.
Yeah.
He's a good. I gotta
Doesn't
read this
even
thing.
have a wife.
I gotta read this thing. I want to remind everyone that this episode of the podcast is brought to you by Audible. Thank you, Audible, for supporting this episode of the Really Likable Geeks podcast. Audible has an unmatched selection of audiobooks, original shows, news, and more that you can listen to on your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or standard MP3 player. For our audience, Audible is offering a free audiobook with a 30-day free trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. We recommend to you Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, which you could keep even if you cancel. To download your free audiobook, go to audibletrial.com/RLG and browse their unmatched selection of audio content. It's that easy. audibletrial.com/RLG, Again, that's audibletrial.com/RLG. Thank you, Audible, for sponsoring the Really Likable Geeks podcast. Tom Bombadil's crazy.
Who the hell is Tom Bombadil?
Wait, what if Tom Bombadil is all of us?
Yeah, they said that, the reader.
Yeah, the reader.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Oh, man.
dude, like that just makes Lord of the Rings so much better because now
Yeah.
you have this added thing now.
Forever
That's-
a mystery.
That's the furthest I've ever dived into the speculation of Tom Bombadil.
One character.
Yeah. He's
That's
so
the furthest
enigmatic.
I've ever dived for that character.
It's crazy. Who's Tom Bombadil?
Because you know the other thing too to think about it is he doesn't care about it. He
No,
doesn't.
he
care.
doesn't.
He doesn't care about
Why
the
do
ring
you
at all.
not care about
You
the
know why?
thing that affects everyone?
Because it doesn't affect him.
But literally everything.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That is all
he's just like
anyone can talk
If he's
about.
been around that long, then he's I'm just gonna keep being
No,
here. So I'm
it's like if you were the one person in 1996 who didn't know the Macarena. You couldn't find that person. Everybody knew it. Everybody knew it.
people still know it.
People still know it.
There you go, Matt. Macarena.
We have to move on
Yes,
from Tom
we do.
Bombadil.
Oh my gosh. So I would say at that point, what the hell is the book that impacts storytelling? We've already gone through
Yeah.
that though, because
Let's talk about
that's how you make a character.
Let's talk about The Hobbit.
The
Let's talk about
Hobbit, which everyone knows is the prequel to Lord of the Rings, which is actually Bilbo.
Yeah.
It is. What are you doing? You having a stroke over there? What's going on with you?
Don't get me wrong. I love Lord of the Rings. It's a great story. It really is. The Hobbit bored me to freaking tears.
Did it really?
Yeah, it
I
did.
love The
The
Hobbit,
movie
man.
or the book?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, I liked The Hobbit a lot actually because I like the in Lord of the Rings I like the dwarves a lot, and that's what The Hobbit is. Surrounded by. They're surrounded by dwarves. The whole thing revolves around
All 9 of them singing and dancing.
getting rid of a dragon, and that's what dwarves did.
I like their singing.
I like it.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole
can't
thing,
hate it,
it's a
but-
good story. It's the classic story of
The
the dragon has the
book.
treasure. Yeah.
The book
Yeah.
is a good story.
It's a good story of a dragon has a treasure, slay the dragon, rule everything. Huh? Well, yeah.
Bart the Boatman is
Bart the
awesome.
Boatman's awesome. yeah.
The movies were terrible.
They were- okay,
The
hold on.
Hobbit movies sucked.
For me, they're entertaining. They're not. They don't hold a candle to the book, of course, but they were entertaining to watch. I enjoyed them.
I didn't.
I enjoyed them
because
for
there were
movies.
3 of them.
I know, and there was a lot
were
of
3. Why?
I don't know.
I'm with him on this one because when we
Why?
hate on anime, the one thing we hate about anime
Filler.
is filler. And that's all these
Filler,
were.
filler. Why was what's her name? Evangeline Lilly?
Whatever. Love interest with the dwarf.
Just a made up elf. They
Yep.
just made up that character
Just so you could have
for
a love
love
interest.
interest for a dwarf.
Hey, was
Why?
Orlando Bloom?
Why? Why?
It was casting.
She
was
looks like an elf. I'm not going to argue that.
Her character's crap, but I'm saying everybody that they cast.
everybody they cast in that
No.
movie.
Was Legolas in the book? I don't remember.
No,
I didn't read
dude,
it.
No, he wasn't.
he
So
wasn't
why
in the
was he
book.
in the movies?
because
Because
it
his
ties to the
dad's
movies.
riding a moose. Dad's riding a moose.
It's true.
His dad's riding a moose.
It's because they. I think what happened was they used the Lord of the Rings movies
As a
as
springboard.
a springboard for
And-
the prequel.
and-
Get
they
out
didn't
of
use
there,
the
Orlando
books.
Bloom.
Yeah, they didn't
You
use the books.
handsome
So they used the
SOB.
movies as a springboard. They hit the high horse, and then their wrists snap, and they fell on the mat, and it was over. Thank you for coming.
Ooh.
Sure.
They did not stick the
Why?
landing.
I'm one of the guys though that enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed it. I'm
The
not gonna say here
dwarves-
that it was like a 10 out of 10. Holy cow! But like it was. I enjoyed
Why
enjoyed
were
it.
the dwarves so
It would not be a waste of my time. It would be a waste of my money if I saw it in theaters.
good looking?
I saw all 3. In
Why were the
theaters.
dwarves so good looking?
Huh?
Philly and Killy were like
Oh, I know.
Abercrombie models.
When they should have
Even
been
Richard Armitage was like feathered hair. Like
I don't know, dude.
dwarves
sex
are
appeal.
not like attractive to
Hey,
humans.
hey. I don't know about you, but when I think hewn from stone, the first thing I think of is absolutely sex appeal.
Okay, so
Literally carved from
if you
actual
have-
real
if
rock.
you have Philly and
Beautifully
Killy
gorgeous.
and Richard Armitage, Thorne
on the artist.
Oakenshield, like looking how they do, and like human women would be all about that.
Rock
even if they
hard
are,
abs.
even if they are short. Why would any of them get with a dwarven woman when they have beards? Dwarven women have beards.
Yeah, they do.
Who wants that?
Dwarven men?
Dwarven men.
No, because Philly was all about
That's
the
true.
elf
He was all
woman.
about the
Yeah.
elf.
True.
So how does that make sense?
Maybe he's
Which means it ruins the entire
canon.
reproduction of the dwarven race. Because if they're attracted to women who don't have beards,
Doesn't matter if he dies anyways.
no, because he wanted to hit that. He wanted to hit that, and she didn't have a beard. She's gorgeous elf chick,
Okay.
and he
This
wanted
argument
to
going on
hit
between
that,
Stuart and our producer.
and he
Hang on.
wanted
right
to
now.
hit that.
Hang on.
It's like what?
I'm
And
going
she
to throw
doesn't-
it back to anime real quick. This is a guy who is threatening the future of his race by wanting to get it on with girls that don't exist.
Yep.
There you go.
It doesn't make any sense.
Hey.
Lord of the Rings is great,
No,
but that
alright,
doesn't
fine.
make any sense. You're right for the movie.
Why did we have an entire movie
Because it's not
for
visually
the
appealing to have a bunch
Battle
of ugly.
five?
dwarves.
They're dwarves. Dwarves are not supposed to be visually appealing. They're dwarves. If you call someone a dwarf, it's not a compliment. It's a pejorative.
I know.
So why would you make them sexy?
I don't
Dwarves
know,
are not
man.
sexy.
for movie for.
That's how you sell
Hollywood.
things.
No.
though. I mean, that's.
Gimli was not sexy.
Yeah, he was.
Dude, what are you
That was a
talking
sexy
about?
man.
I
He
was
a
all up
sexy
for Gimli,
man.
dude.
I would fill that beard up and down and braid it. You think Gimli was hot?
Dude,
Man, that
Gimli
guy
was the
sexy-
best.
He was the best.
Oh,
dude.
yeah, he was.
My axe. Like, yeah, dude. Use that axe.
That still only counts as one.
yeah.
He was Legolas, so I guess it's not.
No, he had a thing with Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, yeah.
Either way,
Wouldn't you?
it's a dwarf.
Hell yeah.
Jeez. All right. Well,
She's ageless.
The Hobbit the book was incredible. It followed the story of Bilbo, which he wrote the book.
There and Back
There
Again.
and Back
There
Again.
and Back Again.
A story by Bilbo Baggins, which was The Hobbit. And
What did he get to? 11D1?
11D1.
Yeah, how many years Bilbo
Oh,
got to?
today's my 911th birthday.
Yeah.
It's 911, I think is what it was. 911. He was so drunk.
The other thing that's stupid is
They casted him perfectly. By
at
way.
the end of
of the world as we know.
no, at the end of the Hobbit movie,
Hmm.
Legolas's dad. What's his name?
Sure.
Moose Man.
He's riding a moose.
Moose Man.
Mises. Many
He's
Mises.
the elf of the
Moose.
forest, and they ride moose. But he's like, oh, I know you're sad about this made-up elf chick that you were sweet
Thranduil.
on. Huh?
Thranduil.
Thranduil.
The king of the woodland realm of the North Mirkwood.
Yeah, because they ride moose.
Yeah, they do.
All right. He's like, why don't you go?
He was a badass.
He was, but he's like, oh, I know you're sad about your chick dying, and also that she was totally attracted to a dwarf, even though you're like stunningly gorgeous, you alabaster statue of a man. Why don't you go look up this dude I heard about, Strider? Like,
Oh.
what? Strider's not born for like
Many years.
60 years. What are you talking about?
I'm like, sure. When?
Like, there's, what, 150 years in between The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings?
Is that what it is? I don't even know.
Strider has not been born.
No, he hasn't been born yet.
He's like 40 in The Lord of the Rings.
Wow, he's
it
doing
is-
really good for 40.
No. Well, because he's got the
The
blood
Hobbit
of
takes
kings.
place 60 years before Lord of the Rings.
Okay, but he's also got elf blood. So he's 40, but he looks like
Gotcha.
he's because he lives to be like 180.
So Steve mentions that it takes place 60 years before.
Okay, so he still hasn't been
He's
born.
20 years
He
prior
has not
to
been born yet. What are you talking about? None of this makes sense.
What if he's named after his dad?
He's not. Strider was his ranger name because he didn't want to be known as Aragorn,
Let's Google
who
this.
is line of the
Maybe-
kings of Gondor.
Okay, maybe he had Ranger Dad. I don't know.
No, he didn't.
How do you know?
Because I read the damn books.
Durandil knew.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't.
Because that never happens in the Hobbit book.
Moose Man
That
knew.
conversation never happens because Legolas
Isn't
is
in the
not
book.
in
I
the
know.
Hobbit.
Oh, the last Hobbit movie. After the Battle of the Five Armies, Legolas tells Thranduil that he won't be coming home. The latter tells him to go find the infamous son of Arathorn that goes by the name of Strider. But the Battle of the Five Armies was fought on TA 2941, and Aragorn was born TA 2931.
10 years.
He's not been born yet. What are you talking about, you moose riding savage? He's a beautiful man. I'm not arguing that.
And Aragorn
they're
did
both
not leave
very
Rivendell
handsome.
until he was 20.
That's the other thing.
Yeah.
How does Thranduil know?
How
He
can
does
Aragorn
not
be-
talk to Elrond.
How can he be infamous at 10? At 10. No,
At minus
because he
10.
was
At
born
minus 10.
Yeah. No. He was born in 2931.
No, because the time's going backwards.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
This is like BC,
Yeah.
bro.
How can he be an infamous rogue at the age of only 10? It's still in Rivendell.
You wouldn't.
The White
What is
Council.
this?
The White Council don't know about Sauron's return until the time of the Hobbit movies. Mirkwood not becoming corrupted until the time of the Hobbit movies. So the condensed time scale between Bilbo's birthday party and Frodo's leaving in Bag End, they're different. They're operating on different timelines completely. Which is certain that at least 60 years passed between the Hobbit and Lord of the Rings movie, because Gandalf says for 60 years the ring lay quiet in Bilbo's keeping, and then given in particular that condensed time scale, it's likely that not much more than 60 years passed. Movie and canon Aragorn would have been 10. He would have been about 27, 28. That's what they're going off of.
No.
They're going off of movie.
That's stupid.
That's why he told them. So in the
That's
movie, he would have been 10. But,
I
but
heard
he's
about,
in Rivendell
I
still.
heard about this 10-year-old human who's living with Elrond. Maybe you should go look him up. Like, why?
Yeah, there's no
Dude,
reason. Because he wasn't
hey.
a famous...
I heard about this
He was a
10-year-old
phase 10 in
human
Rivendell.
who was living with Elrond, just moved out like maybe yesterday, already has a name for himself as like this crazy awesome Infinite Ranger at 10.
If
He's super
my
cool. Check him
father
out.
in real life was like, hey, son, you should go check out this 10-year-old. Boy. I'd be like,
911.
no? What is that?
Yeah, they say the Battle of the Five Armies occurred in 2941, while Aragorn was born in 2931.
Oh, my God.
Before he was born, already, but only 10 years old. So he's still in Rivendell, would have been. So he's not famous for anything.
He's famous for being 10. He's famous for, not crapping in his pants anymore.
Dude, I think he might have won the Rivendell 4th grade spelling bee.
Like, he's the only... I mean, is he famous because he's the only 10-year-old in Rivendell?
Pretty much.
Telling you. Rivendell 4th grade spelling bee, bro.
Also, I know no one wants to talk about this, but Arwen was already like 100
Yeah.
when Aragorn was born.
She was old AF. Yeah.
She is robbing that cradle. She is robbing that cradle. She saw that baby and she's like, man, in 20 years,
I'm gonna get some.
I'm going to get me that.
There's a lot of people that are like, why did this happen? And it's all basically saying that they're going off the timeline from the movie, not going backwards. So they're saying that he would be 10. But in the books, yeah, he wouldn't have been born yet.
No.
Yeah, this scene and dialogue was invented for the movies and doesn't occur in all in the books. You're correct. It's difficult to reconcile with the geography of the books
in the book.
and difficult to determine exactly what Thranduil may have meant.
Why? Why?
The only reasonable
Why put it in
explanation,
there?
maybe that Aragorn was at that time
give Orlando Bloom
ranging
some more screen time?
north of Erebor, and that Thranduil knew it. Since the movies operate in a different timeline,
As a
Aragorn's age of
10-year-old?
10 in the books would be irrelevant, and this is possible.
As a 10-year-old, he was ranging. In the movies, he's 10.
He's 10, and he's already got
And
a name
he's just
as
like
a ranger.
out there
And up there.
murking
gonna
as a
tell you,
ranger.
but-
But
Right
is
now.
he?
He's
so
a
what-
very
but are
precocious
they,
10.
Okay, because
I know why they did this.
to
Why?
piss us off.
Orlando Bloom had a contract. They needed more screen time for him. Boom.
But here's
Done.
the thing, because I know that they
God.
have such a long lifespan. His, Aragorn's. What's
He
the
lived
race?
to 180.
Yeah, so he has a long lifespan. So at 10, is he actually the equivalent of a 20-year-old?
No,
I don't
he's
know.
still 10.
All right. Well, he made a name for himself at 10 in
No,
Rivendell.
because they show because Arwen has a vision of her son when he's like 6, and he looks 6. They just live longer. They don't.
Yeah, I know. I'm just
They don't
saying, I don't know.
They don't like accelerate and then stop.
I don't know. I have an explanation for this. I don't disagree with you.
Hobbit
okay,
movies
the
suck.
Hobbit movie was not good. The books are great because that's not in
Hobbit,
it.
the book Hobbit is great. The movie is just like
And Tom Bombadil's crazy
so much random
stuff.
crap.
Stuart, you know what I think we need? I think we need to stop this for just a minute, and we need to have like a 17-minute scene where we're in barrels floating down a river.
Yeah,
That was a cool scene.
that was a cool scene.
It was, but I don't think it needed to be as long as it was.
Could have been longer. That river could have been longer. Because that would have made the movie better.
With the fake made-up lady who wasn't in the book,
Yeah.
Why wasn't she in Lord of the Rings then? What was she doing? No,
she died
she didn't.
in between.
From what?
Aragorn
Cancer.
killed her. But he was ranging.
Oh, she died. She died like Padme did from heartbreak.
Yeah, there you go.
Yay, love. Love encompasses all. Even in the fantasy world.
Giving birth to a half-elf,
died.
half-dwarf.
Like we have a robot doctor who tells us that she's dying from heartbreak. It's like, okay, well, that robot doctor is broken. Because dying from heartbreak is not a thing.
At least it's definitely...
Also, we're elves. We live for 1,000 years.
Plus.
Like, I just stab myself for fun and don't die. She doesn't die from heartbreak, though. That was not
Yeah.
true.
Because you will have a queen, sir.
After they do get married and they do have their children because they have more than one. Later on, he dies because he doesn't.
She does not die from heartbreak.
She doesn't die from heartbreak.
No, she doesn't. If you want to go into the Silmarillion, no, she does not die from heartbreak.
We should go into
It
that.
sounds
She
like our producer
lives-
wants to go into the Silmarillion.
Our producer is saying that Arwen eventually does die from heartbreak
She doesn't.
after her line
Let's look it up.
with Aragorn dies out.
Let's look it up.
But she doesn't.
She does not.
She doesn't.
Well, I'm going to look it up.
Google that. Google that, Steve. 'Cause she don't. That was something that Elrond told her to get her to get on the boat and stop her crying. Get on the boat to the magical land to the west. I am your father.
All right. It's simply that staying in Middle Earth means that she has to become mortal. So no matter what happens to the One Ring, the elves have to leave Middle Earth. This includes Elrond, of course. So Arwen is dying because she has chosen to remain in Middle Earth after her father departs. Ta-da!
She just dies of old age.
Just dies because
Going into the
Dang.
west means that she won't die with all the other elves. They just all live forever in the west. She did not die of heartbreak. Matt,
I mean, what?
shut up. Do you guys think it's weird that there were 5 wizards sent to Middle-earth? We only ever see 3 of them?
I'm willing to bet that there was probably a billionaire orphan who killed the other 2.
With the glowing moon rock.
Yeah, tied to a stick.
Do you know anything about the blue wizards, Matt?
I know what you have told us in the previous podcasts.
Those are the 2, right?
And
that are
that's
missing.
it.
It's the
Yeah,
blue wizards, right?
Because for some reason there's Gandalf the Grey, Saruman the White, Radagast the Brown,
Monty Python and,
and
the
then the
Holy
blue
Grail set.
wizards.
Black Knight.
and then the blue wizards. Yeah, they're
Moranitar and Romestimo, or whatever it is.
yeah, they're
Jay and Silent Bob.
At this point, yes.
they both wore sea blue robes.
Yeah.
Ooh, see,
They were Maya. That
yeah.
was their race. They're Maya.
Well, because they're angels.
they were
yeah.
Mayans?
No, Maya.
Human sacrifice?
Their names in Valinor were Alatar and Palando.
Yeah. I think they're mentioned,
These,
but in the movies, I think they're mentioned.
yeah.
but they're
So
never-
basically, all 5 wizards had their missions when they were sent to Earth. They were angels in disguise, and they were sent to Earth with missions. And Saruman failed his, obviously, or he chose to not do it. In a letter, Tolkien says that these 2 wizards went into the East and likely failed their mission, perhaps having started magical cults. However, all of this changes in text written in the last year or 2 of Tolkien's life. An alternate set of names are given, Morentar and Romastamo, or Darkness Slayer and East Helper. It is not clear whether these names were intended to be replacements for Alatar and Palando, or whether they were a second set of names, because, like, Gandalf had, 9 different
he
names.
has so many. Yeah.
They were said to have arrived not in the Third Age, but in the Second, around the year SA 1600, the time of the forging of the One Ring. Their mission was directed at weakening Sauron's forces in the eastern part of Middle-earth, and it is here said that the wizards far from failed. Rather, they had a pivotal role in the victories of the West at the end of both the Second and Third Ages. Glorfindel was likely also, Tolkien mentioned later, a shipmate of the wizards, for he reappears in history about that time.
Yeah.
So basically, nothing is known about them,
In
not
the,
even their names,
In the game,
But
or
they saved the
whether
world.
they succeeded or not.
in
But somehow they saved the world.
Shadow of Mordor, the game, there's 3 artifacts describe the encounter of the 2 wizards. I do remember this. I played the game. I do remember this. But there's 3 artifacts describe the encounter of the 2 wizards whose names couldn't be remembered traveling side by side into Mordor. These may have been the blue wizards. Furthermore, a figurine depicting them has been carved out of a blue stone. More lore tells the player that the Black Hand could have been a king that brought Sauron 2 heads of Istari, the blue wizards.
So
and
they
that
did
was,
fail.
and that was, yeah, and then so obviously they failed. But it's like,
But what can kill an angel?
what? Yeah, exactly. Beheading one of them wouldn't necessarily.
Kill an angel.
That's
even
an elf thing.
When Gandalf died,
You know?
he just went back to heaven and then got sent back. Like
Yeah.
when he was fighting the Balrog on top of the mountain, he died.
Yeah. It was,
And then Iluvatar was like, "You still got stuff to do. Go back. Now
Yeah.
you're white. Now you're Gandalf the White."
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Saruman
he was
lost
okay.
that, so
well,
you get
here's-
to be white
here's-
now.
Here's the other thing: is that Gandalf says that because Gandalf was dead for moments, but to him, it seemed like eons.
Yeah.
Because when he comes back, he's having a hard time remembering all of his friends.
Right.
Even though they're just like, "Dude, we saw you like a week ago." Right, remember?
Yep. And then he's like, sure.
So that, I don't really put too much into that because what can kill an angel? Not only one angel, but two
Two of them.
angels.
Yeah.
And also,
like-
nobody knows that they're angels. We as the reader do. And Sauron might, but no one else does.
No.
That's why Gandalf appears as different to different people, because it's like a personal perception kind of a thing.
Right. The blue wizards they're so strange because they were basically sent to help with the destroying of the ring.
And they did nothing.
And they didn't do anything. Like they were around after the passing of, or no, they were around like after like Gandalf sailed off and everything like that. They were around, but it's like doing what?
Where were you guys when we had that?
Where were you at?
Big battle.
Yeah,
could have used you at Helm's Deep.
Yeah, it's like it's like the mention of the blue wizards doesn't make sense because they're mentioned enough to be like why throw that in there? Like, well, there were supposed to be 5, but 2 of them went off and they screwed up. Whatever. Why even mention that? Why is that important? Why even have enough backstory to let them know that they're angels? Why have enough backstory to say that they may have failed? Failed what? In regards to what? To help with what? Why is it important?
Where was Radagast?
Where was Radagast?
In any of that. He's just smoking weed in the forest
and
with
hanging out with freaking
squirrels and rabbits.
Mushrooms.
Actually, there's a little bit about Radagast in
Where
here.
was Radagast during the war?
Let's see. Let's see. The only reference to Blue Wizards of Lord of the Rings is Saruman's accusation of the Gandalf wants to take the stage of all 5 wizards for himself. Tolkien writings have more to say. In the unfinished tales, Tale of the 5 Choosings is told in that about the 5 wizards. Now, the tale ends with the statement was obliged to take Radagast with him to please Yavanna. Which is Ali's wife.
Yeah.
And that Alatar took Palando as a friend. So Alatar was the second wizard to be chosen at the suggestion of Valara, who had the most knowledge of the eastern lands. Palando was then chosen by Alatar to accompany him as a friend. And in an early draft, Tolkien had associated Palando with Valar and Nienna. But then he changed this to also associate Palando and Orome. In a letter written at the same time, he wrote their role. I think they went as emissaries. This is from him. I think they went as emissaries to distant regions east and south, missionaries to enemy-occupied lands, as it were. What success they had, I do not know, but I fear that they failed as Saruman did. They doubtless, though doubtless in different ways, I suspect they were founders or beginners of secret cults and magic traditions that outlasted the fall of Sauron. So...
So they're Mormons. The Blue Wizards were Mormons.
Yeah. So in the unexpected journey, Gandalf refers to the Blue Wizards, according to Peter Jackson in the director's commentary and the edition of the filmmakers, the Silmarillion, the history of the Middle Earth. They could not legally name the Blue Wizards
because they've got multiple names,
right? And then in 2014, there's the whole thing that there was a figurine depicting. The 2 blue wizards have been carved out of a blue stone. And the lore tells the player that the Black Hand could have been a king that brought Sauron the head of 2 Astari.
Oh my God.
It's like,
makes no sense.
Doesn't make sense. The blue wizards have no impact on the story.
At all.
But they're there. Why even mention them?
There's more information on the Blue Wizards who have 0 impact on the story in any way, shape, or form. And you already know where I'm going with this, Steve. Then Tom freaking Bombadil, who has a major impact.
I'm glad we went down that rabbit hole about Tom Bombadil. That makes Lord of the Rings so much better. It really does.
What do you mean Rabbit Hill?
Well, the hole.
That was like an anthill. And we only went down the very first tunnel.
Yeah. I'm going to do more research. Tom Bombadil.
Good luck.
Yeah. This is why
do that
Lord of
till
the
you die.
Rings and The Hobbit are amazing. We gripe about certain things, but you know what? It's awesome. It's awesome. It's an accompanying story that's got so much stuff in it that all these years later, we're still arguing about it. and it doesn't need to be answered. To be
Almost
honest.
100 years
I
later.
like the fact that it doesn't need to be answered. I do. I like
It's
that.
great storytelling.
It is. There's a reason for everything. I just don't think that maybe people have found the reason. Yeah. After all this time, no one's found the
I
reason.
imagine part of it also has to do with the fact that he didn't get to finish.
That's true. That too.
And that is also possible.
Maybe he did it on purpose so that people 100 years later plus would still be talking about it, which is exactly what we're doing. And we love Lord of the Rings and we love The Hobbit. Yes, I would say that's a given.
Yep. You're not getting an argument from me.
Yeah.
If you were getting an argument from me, you've already gotten it.
Go watch Lord of the Rings. Read the books. Watch The Hobbit. Read The Hobbit. Listen to the books on Audible.
Watch The Hobbit after
Lord of the Rings. Yeah, don't
you
watch
read The Hobbit. Because if you watch the movies and then you read the book,
You're going to be confused.
you're going to be very, very sorely disappointed.
Yeah.
Whereas if you read the book and then watch the movies,
Make sure
you'll just be disappointed in the movie theatrical production. That's all.
do not get any books. I will say this, because this is a real thing. Do not get any of the Lord of the Rings or Hobbit books that have the movie printed on the cover.
Oh, yeah,
because
don't do
then it
that.
is going off of the movie.
Yeah, don't do that.
Buy the OG Lord of the Rings books.
Yeah.
The OG ones.
Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, and read that story.
The other thing that the Hobbit movie got correct was the riddle scene.
The riddle scene in the Hobbit movie was absolutely correct, and that was the best part of all three movies was the riddle scene. That was fantastic. Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis did a fantastic job.
Andy Serkis is amazing.
Fantastic. No, Andy Serkis is Gollum. He did fantastic mocap, the voice, everything was perfect.
It's incredible.
Martin Freeman did a great job.
He almost got hypothermia.
Oh yeah, several times.
Crawling around in that river trying to catch that freaking fish. He almost got hypothermia.
That was fantastic.
Good job there, buddy. So, Lord of the Rings is great. It's amazing. Watch it. Read it.
Live it.
Live it. Go on an adventure.
Learn it, love it, live it.
And on that note, we're going to wrap this whole thing up. The whole thing about Tom Bombadil just wore me out. And the whole thing about the Blue Wizards just wore me out even more. So you can find the podcast on YouTube and iTunes and Google Play, and you can find the link by visiting reallylikablegeeks.com. That link will be down here, right down in the corner. And you can find me on Twitter at that Stephen Brown.
You can usually find me avoiding Twitter at BelieveTheWeave.
And you can find me at Stu_no last name.
So thank you for listening to us rant and rave about Tom Bombadil and the
then
Blue
also
Wizards.
talk a little bit about
Bombadil.
Lord
And
of the Rings.
also talk about how great Lord of the Rings is, because it is awesome.
It's fantastic.
But mostly Tom Bombadil.
But mostly Tom Bombadil,
Bombadil.
and the Blue Wizards.
Who
Something
dat?
like that. Who that dude is.
Who that dude
Who
is?
that is.
Who knows?
Thank you guys for listening and watching. We will see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Later.